Thanks for coming along, everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for a great turnout.
This is my alma mater here. I used to come to film lectures in this version of this theatre before it was restored to its former beauty.
So very nice to be back.
It's so nice to be back.
With your film.
There's somebody up there sitting in a seat that that I got for my kids.
Well, it's, thank you for bringing the film. Wonderful film. It's the second time I've seen it. And
first time I've seen it. It really is. Well, I graded it mute, in LA Technicolor, so I didn't get a chance to see it at the final soundtrack.
Right.
So it's really nice to see it on the screen with an audience and with a properly scored film.
Yeah. So last time you saw it, didn't have any of the
not even mute,
finished sound.
The soundtrack. Soundtrack.
Yeah, it's tremendous. So, I mean, so the first time I saw it, I've now scribbled all of these other notes on here, so you have to bear with me. But but the thing that I'd completely forgotten about was that the hotel was it was based on a real hotel that existed that Frank Sinatra owned.
Yeah, it was
at some point.
The germ of the idea came from a real place on the border of Nevada and California called the Cali Neva, California, Nevada.
Sure.
And it was a bit of a mafia haunt, but it was Sinatra owned it at one point. Right. And it was where politicians and various other
could abuse the state line.
Yes. And got up to, no good in front of two-way mirrors.
Okay.
So that place did exist, and there are lots of legends.
So the senator they sort of reference, they never name, but it alludes to.
Well, even Drew, the director, wouldn't even tell me who it was. Okay. But I was saying, was it Bobby Kennedy? Was it JFK? Was it Martin Luther King?
Sure.
I think it might have been Martin Luther King he was thinking about. I think because of at the very end when the priest gives Cynthia the film, and it's her choice to burn it.
Yes.
So I think it may have been that, but who knows? It's a story.
So, well, it is a story, but what I think is interesting is that there's a heightened construction to the entirety of the film. And when I was watching it for the second time, and when I watched it the first time, I didn't realize how much was shot in a studio set. Okay, so there was this kind of I thought there was a correlation between this idea of sort of reality or truth, or what the characters were sort of, everyone's withholding something. So in a way, I thought that was important.
It is.
That it was shot in that way. Sorry.
No, I mean the director Drew always wanted to make it slightly tuned up, to make it like full of allegory, full of kind of bold chapters, and he also wanted the freedom of shooting in a set, and also we were shooting in Vancouver, which was absolutely Baltically cold
in January,
and
earlier this year.
Rain. There was all that progression of biblical rain that was getting heavier and heavier, so there was no way we could have shot that in the freezing cold in Canada. But there were film references that we looked at that films we really loved, like One from the Heart, that you could speak photographically, metaphorically, when you've got something that's slightly artificial. The sense of artifice is very present. Sure. And I like that, the fact that I could light those night scenes, I could backlight the rain, I had a lot of control of that, and we could switch off the rain, after a take, which was a great benefit.
But when you first read the script, I mean, maybe you could talk about how you met Drew, but when you first read the script, did you sort of, where did you place it? Did you imagine that it would have such a sense of artifice about it, or?
I didn't think it would have as much, and in fact, when I met Drew and when I read the script, it did have like a photographic heart to it, and it's definitely the photography kind of poured out of the page to me, and the sections, the flashbacks and all that, were kind of clear to me from the writing, actually. But Drew was very keen that, especially in that built environment and with all the control that's offered to you in that, in terms of lighting and staging and design, not a real location, everything's designed, the costumes, everything, that he didn't want it to be too overwrought, too controlled, too tuned. He wanted a sense of veracity, certainly. He wanted people to connect with the human beings, even though they are allegories, in some sense. Yeah. So it was that delicate balance that Drew was always trying to strike, and I was too, of doing something that's emboldened with intent, but which you feel that you're there in a real space.
Sure.
So does that?
I mean, maybe we should elaborate, because when I first saw it, I had no idea, and that the entire thing
was on stage.
Yes, construction.
Yeah.
So not only the interior of the hotel, but also the parking lot and
the day exteriors were as well.
So the scale of this, of what one has to sort of take on.
And it was tricky, because the night exteriors are kind of easy to persuade producers to do on a stage.
Sure.
But day requires a lot of light, especially we're shooting anamorphic on film. So creating ambient daylight required a lot of, you can imagine that softbox there above us now multiplied by 200.
Yeah.
And you say that to the producer, and they balk at the idea. So it was that, and we had great help, with the film from Panavision, and who supplied the cameras and C-series lenses, and from our lighting company as well up there, who allowed me to use that degree of light and produce that and work within the budget. So it all worked out in the end, and everyone was so glad once it was snowing so badly outside that we wouldn't have been able to.
But when they committed to it was Vancouver, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So when they committed to that, how else did they think one was going to achieve it?
I know. Well, the thing is that there are a couple of exteriors. We built a partial set exterior that had to have sunlight that opened the film.
So when they, sorry to interrupt, but when they come out of there's a moment where you sort of come out of the hotel, and I was watching it and seeing the sky and seeing, is that how much,
That was, there was extension beyond.
Okay.
So we didn't even use green screen because the edge of the
they just roto it now.
Roto it, But the opening of the film was shot in a real place.
Right.
And it was so cold and so, like that initial meeting between Jeff Bridges and Cynthia Erivo was actually in an exterior.
Is this where they had to thaw the ice off?
We did. And we had to, I think they digitally had to remove the steam from the breath because it was just a nightmare. And that was actually one of the very last things we shot, because there wasn't a single day where there was any sunlight throughout the whole film. So we kept pushing that scene back and back and back. So we shot the first scene at the very end of the movie.
Right. And how did you get to meet Drew? I mean,
well, Drew, I had met because he was a friend of Joss Whedon, the director of The Avengers. So I met Drew. He came on a set visit, and we went out for dinner afterwards with Joss, and he had been working on Cabin in the Woods, which I love. It was a film that Drew directed, and he said that he'd been working on this film that I was intrigued by, and then when I was working on The Greatest Showman, which was a Fox movie, and this was produced by Fox, they said, look, there's this script that Drew would like to send you. And I said, well, I heard about this a few years ago. And when I read it, it was just one of those scripts that you read, and I find it really difficult to, I like the guy, but I find it so difficult to read a script. It takes me a week or so. You're photographing every scene, you know what it's like. So, I just couldn't put this down. I read it in one sitting.
Right. Well, that's always a good sign.
And I rang him up right away and I said, please, can I shoot it for you?
And it was his first feature film.
No, he had actually done Cabin in the Woods before.
Oh, sorry,
before
okay,
that. So
right.
this was his second.
Okay.
And he's
okay.
written
but it's
loads.
A bit, but it's a. I mean, there's a lot going on. It's a big budget. A lot of.
Yeah, it was a $32 million budget.
Sure.
Most of which went on the set, I think. You know,
Right.
because it felt as tight budget-wise as any other film I've worked on, or the lower budget films. Weirdly,
Sure.
so I think a lot went into that. It obviously goes a little further in Canada,
Sure.
but yeah.
But you obviously have many films under your belt. Was there a point where you sort of had any reservations about working with somebody that had less on-set experience?
No,
or was
no.
there, I mean, how did you?
Well, just from the very get-go, the second you meet somebody like Drew, he's such a phenomenally.
I mean, he's very experienced as a producer and a writer, I should say. I mean, I'm not,
Well, he's a filmmaker.
Sure.
And he comes from that, it's in his blood. So speaking to him, he's full of references for films. He's a real cineast. He knows he's got encyclopedic knowledge of cinema and art. So he's somebody that you can talk to, but most importantly, he's, when he talks about emotions and his script, he knows inside out. So for me, it was a great pleasure to work with a director who had that knowledge, but also let me give me a bit of rope with it.
Sure.
Because some directors you work with, as you know, can be very didactic about cinematography and say, well, we're here on a 40 and we're tracking from it.
Well, it's just a different process.
Yeah.
I mean, you never know especially with somebody you haven't worked with before, you don't know what the process is going to be.
Yeah. We sort of rolled into it very nicely. It was a very easeful, familial process of just getting to know everybody. And I was very lucky I had a crew because I'd worked on a couple of films in Vancouver before with the same crew on Godzilla and the film I've been trying to get off my MDB, 50 Shades of Grey. Is there any way of doing that?
Anyone?
Is there anyone from IMDb in the audience? But the crew I had on those two films were amazing, so I was able to bring them on again. And they just, what it's like when you've got a great team behind you who can really support and carry you. For sure. It makes all the difference. Really.
Well, also, what it's like to not, those both scenarios. Where
the other way. And this was a tremendously difficult film for particularly Doug Lavender was the camera focus puller. And we were shooting, not exactly wide open, but T4 on C-series anamorphics, which are beautiful. They're my favorite lenses. But you can see that there's just nothing there. And he just nailed it. I mean, I was sitting in the seat there, like, sphincter tightening with every close-up.
Well, I was going to ask you, is it a film that you operated on in any capacity? Or?
I did a wee bit of operating. I mean, I think that I'm an okay operator, but when I work with the greats, like on this one I had Dave Emmerichs, and as the camera operator, and I also did some Steadicam. And here, I work with many of the greats, Phil Sindel and Pete Robertson, who are just incredible. And when you see those people at work, you just say, okay, I'm standing by. And also with some of the situations we had, and I love operating, don't get me wrong, but when you have 3 cameras, particularly in fire and stunts and dialogue, we often ran 2 or 3 cameras for the big dialogue sequences. We shot over 1 million feet of film.
Yeah, I read that.
So Kodak did send us 3 pencils as a gift. So thank you.
3 each.
3. But it was great. But that way I could sit with Drew the whole time and we could look at the 3 cameras and assess what we needed to adjust. So I didn't really want to operate, but I did, where there was when a 3rd camera came on, I would jump on that one, which was great to get back in the saddle again. It was just like,
Well, I've heard stories about you putting 5Ds on process trailers and
shooting.
So, there's obviously a...
I didn't do any digital on this. We shot 16 on this. For all the newsreel footage and black and white on the TV, we shot all that on 7222, 16 mil. with a little SR2. I hadn't had one of those in my hand since in a while. It was so lovely to project an image and see grain again.
Sure.
That was just beautiful.
Well, that brings me to my next question about film, and obviously, this was shot predominantly 500, exclusively 500.
Exclusively. Even all the LA bright sunshine stuff.
Right.
We shot, I love 5219. And, in an effort to persuade the producers, who were actually really good about us. Normally it's a bit of a battle to shoot on film. But from the outset, Drew always wanted to shoot in film, and I did too. And then it was the anamorphic. We shot everything on film. Yeah.
All on the same.
The same stock, and it reduced the amount of short ends we were going to have. It just meant I didn't have to change my meter. No, it was just what I love about that stock is it has teeth. And some of the slow speed stocks, I mean, it seems weird saying this, but they have a perfection, a plasticity that I've always reacted to.
No, I found the same thing with 45 years where we shot I always end up this thing where I shot 250, 550, and then every time we cut to the 50, it never felt like it sat within the film.
Same.
So then the next film I didn't,
It's a very unique stock that, I mean, specific and great for certain projects, but I'm so glad that we're able to have the choice. It's so exciting to sit down with the director and he said, what should we do? Should we shoot on film and what stock should we use? And
so was it ever a discussion for this film?
No, from day one it was always digital, and I went straight to the producer, Jeremy Latcham, with whom I'd worked on The Avengers, and that was a digital film. And I said, Jeremy, we want to shoot this digital on film, not digitally. And he kind of had in the back of his mind, he'd budgeted a digital option.
Sure.
But they were tremendously supportive, and I didn't even have a discussion with them beyond that. It was just like, okay. And same with the studio, Fox were totally supportive. It was great. It's unusual because normally it's a bun fight.
For sure. Yeah. So another thing I wanted to ask you was just this. It felt like, from what I've read about, there's a great interview in British Cinematographer, by the way, where a lot of I was sort of avoiding the obvious sort of technical questions because I think the interviews, the article is very good, and it's interesting to sort of have a more philosophical or a slightly more in-depth discussion. However, but I was just going to say that in the article there was a sense that when you read the script, or I got a sense that when you read the script, there were, in terms of color or production, there was things that might feel slightly prescriptive when you're reading it, and so
well they were.
Was that an aid, or was it?
It was in this sense because when it comes from the imagination of Drew Goddard, they're properly distilled. Right. Sometimes you get prescriptive, photographically prescriptive material that you're just thinking, this is completely at odds with what I would imagine myself as I read the script. So this one, when I read the script and there were cues, like there's a big track, like the big long track in the corridor that you see that follows John
which I want to ask you about.
Oh, right. Well, that was written in the script.
Oh, okay.
And all the rooms, the colours of the rooms were all specifically annotated and written in the script. Drew had it all figured out before I came on board. So none of that is my idea, the big shot.
See, this is
people
interesting.
Say, oh, it's a signature thing, big shots. And I didn't come up with the Atonement big shot either. In fact, I argued against it. That was all Joe's.
Well, that was my question, because there is a sense that those long takes become a trademark of your work.
No, I'm happy for the Atonement one because it got me an Oscar nomination. It was But it wasn't my idea.
No, sure.
And Joe loves those sort of shots. I'm not a great fan of big long shots, actually.
So is there anything that you absolutely insist upon photographically? I appreciate what you're saying, but is there anything that you...
Well, a discussion about it. Yeah. That's what I love about Drew. Yeah. And with Joe, in fact, like when I said, really, Joe, that's so self-indulgent to do a big shot in Atonement like that. It looks like a peacock. Instead of we'd really thought about the photography up until that. And I said the same thing to Drew in this film. I said it's just like it's a bit of a show-off shot.
But that's interesting because is that just a sort of personal go-to where it's not the idea of that peacocking or that celebrate, you know, because I can understand what you're saying, and it's not my. When you know, so in films I've shot recently that I'm very proud of, I would absolutely say that all of that stuff comes from the director, and it's the film they want to make. And you know what?
Yeah.
That's what they had in their head, and
they're
also editing it. So
and I had to respect that. And actually, when I started talking, saying, "Is this a show-off shot?" Drew said, "Look, here's why I want it," and it was about the building of tension slowly. It was about introducing, unequivocally and without a lie of a cut, the idea of looking into the rooms. It was about witnessing the things happening in real time between the rooms, which was sort of essential to the film. It was about introducing the idea of reflection. So we had these beautiful half-silvered mirrors, like beam splitter glass that was the art department made, that we could extract reflection in camera. There's no visual effects to get which they'd actually budgeted for. They were going to have GoPros inside and match the effect. We'll never shoot without glass. This is what the visual effects were suggesting to me, and I was like, we can do this in camera. We just black ourselves out.
Wasn't this the glory? This was glory hole.
Yes, we built a little glory hole. Are you allowed to say that these days?
I think so. Well, you have said
I don't know. It's out there now. I'm going to tell you as well. Oh, God. And he never worked again. But we had a glory hole, and it was a little. We had the Panavision camera wrapped in black, but we also had like a card with a mirror in front, and we were looking through that. And it was remotely operated on a Libra head.
Right. It's
and
incredible sequence, that take. I mean, what is it, 5-minute take?
Yeah, it's a bit longer. And
it's fantastic.
It's just because it had been prevised to death by the director, Drew, and they'd kind of done what's called a tech viz, where you work out how to do it. So when I came on board, they'd already worked out. We take the side of the corridor out. We do it on a 30-foot techno crane. There's like 100 feet of track. Right. The camera's pickling in and out. It's all, and I was like, we'll never hide the reflections. We'll not be able to react to the vagaries of his movement with such a cumbersome device. So let's do it just on a dolly. We had one of the greatest dolly grips in the world, Ryan Monroe, who was basically the operator, you know, and so he was there again, looking like a ninja, like all dressed in a black leotard, and he was pushing the dolly and moving around, and Ham was amazing, John Ham, because he's just great at you know, an actor can suggest when they go for a move. Just with anticipating a move. Actually, Jeff Bridges does that as well, because if he's standing up out of a chair, he does this dolphin noise. So he goes like. See, you didn't get that. But he does that. You ready?
For whose benefit is that?
Well, it's for the operator, because you're sitting on the operator. If you're operating and somebody just stands out of a chair and you crush the headroom, but with the dolphin, so it was such a great thing for him to do. And actually, he wrote a really lovely thing at the end of the film to me. He said, you know, make sure you must credit Dolphin on this movie.
Right. He's an actor that I would, dream.
Oh, he's amazing.
When I was a kid, watching movies and wanting to do, I was completely convinced he was the guy that played Chewbacca. For some reason, I made this correlation. I was like, it made perfect sense when I was 8 or 9, that there was
He could well have.
Doesn't matter, but he's such.
But he takes these amazing pictures on set. He has this wide lux camera that takes pictures, and he made this beautiful book, limited edition book that he gives out to all the crew members on every film he does. They're real treasures. So I'm very glad to have one of those.
And I should ask about the sort of technical aspects of the film for those that haven't, read the cinematographer article. But what's it was obviously shot on film, 500T, and processed where?
Photochem in Burbank in Los Angeles. Right. We sent it down from Canada, and we did some shooting in Malibu on the beach and that field of yellow flowers.
Which is still all across the board 500T. So even the water and the...
Yeah, all that stuff.
And they had no concerns that it should have been shot on any other stock?
Well, we could have done it on 200, but, I really love that stock. And, the only problem was it was a bit of a pain because we had to ND it down, but a lot of that stuff was shot off remote heads. So the difficulty is if you're looking through a film camera with that amount of ND and bright sun, you can't see anything. It's just horrible to look through after talking to you about it, but that's what it is. It wasn't really, we didn't want to treat those flashbacks in any other way. We didn't want to amp up the visuals or use heavy filtration or do anything. We thought that the milieu, the period would tell or signal it for itself. Sure. And we just shot it in a way the actors kind of carried the flashback, and maybe we used a more kind of innocent perspective. For instance, on the beach, just embracing flare, or the walk in the woods, just consciously using that beautiful characteristic sea series, blue line flare, and the chromatic nature of the lenses, which I absolutely adore. I just love what that does because we didn't use any filtration at all on the lenses, and you can see and the grade was very simple as well in the DI.
So where was the DI?
It was at Technicolor. Steve Scott.
In LA?
Yeah, and Steve Scott was the colorist, who's just a genius. But it was straightforward, but a gentle approach. We didn't want to twist the image too hard. Sure. So certainly, cosmetically speaking, we didn't do that. The seas are just amazing, with a little bit of overexposure on a key light. They just are so creamy in the highlights. I love them.
Well, I think not only the photography was intimidating, but also Chris Hemsworth's body, which
I know it was fun when we did 27 takes of that shot of him ding 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 coming towards, and like after 27 takes, and Drew was loving it. Like he said, let's do another one. And after a while, me and the AD were like, who's going to tell Mrs. Goddard? Because he was loving it so hard. Yeah, I really will never work again now.
Okay, open up, keep it closed. Oh, well, there we go. Well, now I'm going to have to embarrass myself by looking at some questions.
I love the rake of this theatre. It's fantastic. I've never been in a theatre with such a steep
keep
rake.
Going.
Yeah. Shall I sing a few songs, Lol?
Yeah, exactly.
But it was one of those films that was a rarity. It comes along when you do a film like this that is the script, and it just offers you so much possibility for exploring things. And for me, it was the collaboration with the designer was as important as the director.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Yeah, because Martin I'd worked with before on another. Wist. Yeah, Martin Wist, and he was an art director for many years.
Had you worked with him as an art director?
I worked at another one that I want to speak to IMDb about, Along Came Polly, which he was the art director and Along Came Polly. And, but we got on great on that one. But he just, from the get-go, because a big room like that we're going to be shooting necessarily on 40mm lenses and very wide lenses and seeing everything and seeing effectively 360 for some of the shots. Sure. we knew that we had to build in practical lights into the set. And Martin was amazing. He just said, look, from day one, show me what you need, where you need it, and we'll do that. So he built in these soft boxes, very like what we see here actually, that at least give me a little bit of ambience. Right. To give an exposure level that I could change. And one side, California, we used sky panels, so they were slightly warmer. The cooler side on the other, I love sky panels.
Oh, well, yes, you haven't spoken about that, like that. No, because I haven't asked you. But the idea that you would have this kind of divide. I mean, how much did that? You know, because obviously there's a history and there's a jumping off point historically, and it's, you know, how much did you then lean into that?
Well, that was it. You know, there was that very definite split between the two that we tried. One was at 4,300 Nevada, and the other one was at 2,800 degrees Kelvin. Right. So, you know, that was lovely to play with that. And then, but within that, there were structural things that I thought were really clever that Martin built into the set, because obviously there's lots in the film which is allegorical in terms of the sort of Catholicism. I don't mean in a doctrinaire way, but there is plenty of that through the film. There are kind of religious iconographies, there's moralist ideas within that about good and evil and you know, truth and lies.
Movie, I suppose. Everyone's...
And the elemental nature, like the water and the fire.
Biblical.
And, there's all that stuff. A few locusts would have gone amiss as well. But throughout that, you know, he built in like cruciform images throughout the set, in the dividers and the little splits between the images. And, you know, that was great to see that at an early stage and work with him on that, saying, look, why don't we make the glass partitions gimbalable so that I can get double imagery through things. And he was very receptive to those ideas. As long as you get in early with design, they can help enormously to make your job easier.
So when you first read the script, did it feel like all of these characters were, I know in a way they were sort of, it wasn't a naturalist, you know, sort of film. There was they were these very stylized. But did each of these characters feel they have these redemptive qualities? They were all at the end of
there was a journey. I mean, it was exactly that. It was going towards a point at the end. Sure. It was interesting. I sort of liken it a bit like Cluedo or something. The characters were all that ciphers of different characters, and that extended to their colour characters. You know, they all had little colour identities. You know, Darlene's character had the green of her wall, the yellow, the mustard and green, and there was purple in Emily's room. There was obviously the red of Hemsworth and the portentous
for
priest.
Jeff Bridges.
So that was good to play with.
But interesting early on, like how far does one take that? Because you can take that to this incredibly heightened. Yeah. You can hit an end stop with that, where then
we did go there in prep actually, and that was one of the benefits of a fairly longer extended prep. You know, we had maybe 8 weeks, which is a great length for prep for me. And at the start, it was a little bit heavier handed. And Drew, as we got towards the production, was kind of getting more nervous about.
Were you getting nervous as a DP?
I'm always nervous. I am, but I like to be. I like to be nervous because you look keener, you look harder at what you have to do. But I don't get nervous when the clapperboard goes.
Sure, but that's an interesting point actually.
It's almost like
there's something
the breath. That's it becomes a sanctity of the space happens once the clapperboard hits.
Well, I always think there's a kind of absolute doubt about what one does, and as soon as your eye is at the eyepiece, you would race into tigers coming towards you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I do.
Well, I only mean that in a sense that you would sort of absolute assurance, and sort of you would you know what I mean? Oh,
I once did a video. It was just a dodgy old music video, but it was for Bryan Adams. Actually, it was a live concert thing, and it was at Wembley Stadium. And I remember we had a 16mm camera to express this notion of the cinema world and the real world.
Sure.
And you know, we got it from B stage, which is at one end of the stadium, ran in, got in the back of a golf cart, sped along a corridor in the middle of a song with the drummer going, raced up the stairs, you know, onto this round wide angle lens, and behind Bryan Adams and the spotlights towards me. And then I just saw the little red light for the film had ended. He started the song and I took the thing down and everybody's going, Summer of 69, and I'm like scuttling off stage.
Suddenly you were just everybody else. You know?
Like trying to get the camera back up to my eyeball but see where it was going.
It's a very, I know.
Terrifying. And it was so funny because the director said, you've just got to see this. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. Because the other camera had me, the frontal shot. He said, well, don't worry, I won't use this. But it's just like me going, puce.
But it is strange. I mean, I remember shooting a short film and being on the edge of a platform, you know. The short film that got me my first film.
Oh, right.
And I was on the edge of a platform, and the director wanted half the shot the train pulling through in the Cotswolds, and half the shot. And I would, you know, I was not moving for anyone. Had I actually kind of put the camera down and realised that
you'd be toast.
Yeah.
Oh God, thank God.
You know, only set to illustrate because you sort of.
Well, I'm glad you.
Because one is assured.
You're here.
one is assured in the moment of shooting something.
Yeah.
Far more than in the prep, you know. And you will have in the prep of a film, you have 2 hours discussing something that you would solve in 5-10 minutes on set because you have to. There's a very strange process involved. Anyway, sorry.
No, that's good. I mean, it actually, you know, we were jesting about it, but it does bring up safety on set and why that you can get lost in setting stuff up that doesn't acknowledge that, and it's good to have people responsible around who can say, listen, let's be sensible about this. Because a film, you know, it's only a film after all.
But it's also what we do and what we're incredibly passionate about doing. So we sort of we care and get so involved, you know.
Well, I have to.
Anyway, I'd like to open it up to the floor, if I may. Come on, some questions, surely.
There's one backstage there. Hello.
Do you have a mic? Is there a mic? We have to make sure that all questions have a mic because we're recording it.
Hi. My question was when you talked about, you said you talked to Fox about shooting film when even though they had budgeted digitally, they said, okay, let's shoot film. Why do you think they were so compliant so quickly and so easily?
Well, it was just, I was able to present them with case study of 2 films I'd recently shot, where that debate had been given to me a bit more vociferously at that point, that we must shoot digitally because it's cheaper. And I was able to show them that actually that wasn't the case. In fact, it was, if not on a par, but it was cheaper to shoot on film. In the end, and with Drew, he likes a lot of takes, so it went right through the roof budget-wise. Sorry, guys. Everyone who wants to shoot on film, Fox won't allow it anymore, sorry. But I was able to show on nocturnal animals, because of the discipline of shooting on film and, you know, the takes and not running the camera just ad nauseum for take after take and doing resets while the camera's rolling. You know, that was possible with proper on-set discipline, and which Drew loved that. I mean, he would cut the camera between takes, but he loves a lot of takes because I suppose it's the writer in him as well, loves to, you know, get different versions of the performance, the delivery. So we did shoot quite a lot on that one, but there was, in the worst case scenario, I think it worked out at like $250,000 more expensive to shoot on film if, you know, because we shot 1 million feet. So, which is nothing really in a $32 million film when you think of what it meant for the film and what it meant to the director and it meant to everyone and the look of the film, I suppose. I mean, it's. I was talking to Joe Dunton was here earlier, and he said, "Make sure you talk about emotion and the emulsion," which I thought was a lovely phrase. He said a friend of his had told him about this phrase, that it's emotion and the emulsion, which is catchy, but it is true that there is something alchemical happens with film, and I love digital. Sure. I really do. I love it so much. But something happens, these little surprises that you just can't predict that are special.
Yeah.
And also I loved how it recorded, depicted colour.
Well, also the reds,
yeah,
you know, because
especially.
I think everyone, you know, that shoots has been in a situation where they're working on digital format with red, you know, and recently, you know, in the last year or so, had to sort of end up gelling car headlights in order to add red to them. You know, the way that red is just appears on film is a very specific thing, and you always get this pinky orangey version that is just not true on, you know, so far on digital.
Yeah, on film it just looks like a stained glass window when you see it. When you see it printed, we got regular prints through the shoot just to check that everything was okay and you know that it wasn't. And it was just so lovely to see a print.
But didn't you also, with the El Royale sign, didn't you supplement it with the whole banks of...
I did, because I mean, there was quite a lot out of that neon, but when you're looking at it, the neon was dimmable actually, which was great, because at full pelt, it just exposed white or very pink. So we always had it very low, and then I enhanced it with a 20K gelled primary red, and then also a wash of downlight with sky panels, which is great. You can match that color exactly. I love those things. So that was what we did there. But when we looked this way, I just turned the neon up full whack, and it did all the light for me. So it's a great device.
Another question?
Just how long did it take to shoot the film? And same question as how many takes was the average of economy?
I think we shot for 50 days. Yeah, it was quite a long shoot. But we averaged quite a few takes every setup. You know, more than any film that I've ever worked on. It was an average of maybe 14 to 15 takes per setup. So it meant that we had to work really fast in our lighting, you know, because we wanted to give the director as much time with the actors as possible and as many takes. So I worked really simply with keys, and obviously the ambience was taken care of because we'd lit it in advance. But I generally speaking, you know, I just moved around soft sources around the set and worked in a very simple, like literally a key light, a large key light, and probably that was about it. Sometimes a bit of backlight, but I usually added very little fill. So it was, the lighting was incredibly simple to make sure that it was like 15 minutes between setups, and that way Drew could have as much time and as many takes as he wanted.
Right.
Yeah.
It's down here on the left.
Hi, Seamus.
Hey, Roger.
Two questions, actually. One that's a follow-up from that, because of having been on various sets, doing that many takes usually drives the actors mad more than anybody. So how was that dealt with? And the more technical question I have is, you said there was no visual effects at all on the mirrors, but there were two shots where you tracked behind
the
actor and their reflection. That must have been a green screen, no?
Well, the first question, yes, it did drive the actors a bit nuts, but a lot of actors really love it. Particularly Jeff Bridges loves to explore and cogitate over a performance, and like, hey, let me throw this one in.
Right.
I couldn't do it. I mean, all the actors were doing impersonations of Jeff Bridges, and by the end of it, I was too. But I wouldn't, not on camera anyway, do an impersonation of Jeff Bridges. But there was a competition. Lewis Pullman actually who plays the bellhop guy, does the best impersonation of Jeff. But he was the only one who didn't. He just loved it. He could do like 1 million takes and love the millionth. But Drew liked to see where it would take an actor in their performance, whether it would annoy them. And if that's what sometimes that's what he wanted, that a kind of a pissed offedness in the performance, and sometimes he got that. So sometimes it was just to get what he wanted, and sometimes it was to provoke a reaction. The other question about visual effects, yes, that image, we did that for real with a real mirror. But we had Ryan Munro, we covered our Libra head, it was a remote head in green, and we tracked around, and then we did plates in the same move that would, from the opposite direction, on the curve, so that the visual effects could match it in. There were lots of visual effects in the film, usually set extension, but there were sort of velvet touches, if you like, in the film. There weren't big visual effects in the film. Even the fire was all real. At the end, it was all, it was boiling in there.
You burned the set?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was Joel Wist, Martin Wist, the designer's brother, who was the special effects coordinator, and he... Pyromaniac, brilliant guy. And
it's always good to have it.
It was all gas, so it would turn on, and by the end of it, like even a 1 minute take, we were all like, I looked like the man who fell to earth by the end of it. I had no eyebrows or anything. But no, it was good fun.
Final question?
Yeah, for me, the film seemed to have a feel of an earlier era. It had a sort of Hitchcock feel about it. And you mentioned that the style sort of jumped out of the page at you as you were reading it. So to what extent was that between you and the director? To what extent did you negotiate that? And was that stylistically what he was going for? Did he feel that you wanted those long, extended feeling to everything?
Yes, definitely. I mean, there are cues that are in, like there are music cues in there that reinforce that Herman-esque and also the era suggests that, and maybe the fact that there isn't a lot of cutting, which Drew loves Hitchcock, and building tension through like absence and space. That's why we wanted to play with framing and using the anamorphic frame and creating a sense of potent absence in the other side of the frame. But he loves all those Hitchcock films. We talked about Hitchcock. We talked about black and white. Weirdly, for such a colourful film, we talked about black and white noir, such. But we wanted to make a colour noir, and to create in like the corridors. And when the film did go darker, a sense of monochromatic approach, but with hints of colour in there. So starting with the hopeful, vivid colour and then just degenerating into some weird monochromatic Hades. Yeah, but it was lovely having those discussions. It's lovely when you can meet a director and go through images and look at books and say, let's go this direction, or let's go, and be in an art department, which is my favourite part of prep, is wandering in there and just mulling over all the images around that it can be a whole kaleidoscope of possibilities that may or may not be adopted, but which are all potentials, and deciding there and then, well, let's do this and let's do that and let's make something that's coherent visually and that everyone is on the same page. I mean, that's the exciting thing for me about prep with
possibilities.
yeah, and the kind of democracy of ideas that happens with all the departments, where you realize that cinematography is not a one-person band. It's definitely, you know, the collaboration of all those departments.
Well, it's a very nice note to leave it on, I think. Seamus McGarvey, thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Lol.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was fun. Thanks for coming along, everybody. That was
Thank you so much. That was terrific.